that sound means that the Carolina Swap Shop is officially coming to a close. So let me just say thank you so very much for tuning on inside the jackpot of the airwaves. Now keep in mind, weekdays 10 until 11, we are doing this thing. Bargains, steals, savings can be found, so give me a toll-free call. 888-331-0269. And again, that's 888-331-0269. Our email address, ncswapshop@yahoo.com. This has been another installment of the Carolina Swap Shop. Again, thank you so very much for tuning on in, and I hope you have a great one. Tune in next time.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. America is raining fire down on Iran. Attacks had come in retaliation for the deaths of several American service members over the weekend. Amid the unrest in the Mideast, AAA reports that gas prices have risen to a national average of $4 per gallon. Between the sweltering heat, the smothering humidity, choking wildfire smoke, flooding rains, and deadly tornadoes, this summer has so far brought some wicked weather. Forecasters say that there's no end in sight. Congratulations to World Cup champion Spain. A 1-0 win over defending champion Argentina. World Cup final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. On Wall Street this morning, stocks are mixed. The Dow is down 137 points, while the NASDAQ is 165 points higher, and the S&P is better by 25 points. More details at srnnews.com.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-555-2085 or biglou.com.
The following program is a paid advertisement and does not necessarily represent the views, opinions, or endorsements of Signal Hill Media Partners, its affiliate stations, or its advertisers. Welcome to Taking Care of NC, the program dedicated to exploring the issues, opportunities, and challenges shaping the great state of North Carolina. Join your host, Representative Jeff McNeely, as he delves into meaningful discussions about politics, community initiatives, and the people working to make a difference. Whether it's tackling local concerns, highlighting state achievements, or addressing pressing legislative matters, this show is your go-to source for understanding how North Carolina is growing and thriving. Stay tuned as we kick off another insightful episode of Taking Care of NC.
Good morning, North Carolina. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Saying it's hot's an understatement today. The rain came, and thank goodness for that. The Lord blessed us, but I think I'm wearing most of it in my shirt when I was at work earlier this morning. Just sucked it all up. So it's
made it muggy enough out there.
Oh, my goodness, it is. This is North Carolina July weather, if it ever was. Hey, just got him in the door, too. Got my Clerk of Court here for Iredell County, Jim Mixon. We're going to talk with him this morning. Jim's had a lot of stuff going on lately. It's been a little bit more exciting, and I ain't just talking about Scout Camp either. So
Scout Camp was fun, though.
Scout Camp was something you look forward to, wasn't it? Sure. Hey, real quick, Spain, congratulations to them. Beat Argentina 1-0. until we start scoring more, it's going to be hard to make this an American game, though. It was a lot of defense going on, a lot of kicking the ball out. I didn't watch much of it. Never really got into it. I think I'm just too old to kind of figure out soccer or football, as they like to call it.
I tried to watch it and tried to understand it. I just like getting the ball in the goal, I don't understand it.
Well, I learned a lot about hockey with the Hurricanes winning, so I understand it a little better this year than I have. There's a lot of similarities between hockey, I feel like, and soccer. The only thing about hockey is it's just a lot more fun. It's cooler inside, and there's going to be a fight breakout. If you're there for that, then you got something to look forward to.
Go to the fight and watch a game break.
Yeah, with soccer, I see a lot of people fall on the ground and grab different parts of their legs and stuff, but I don't really see always a lot of contact. And then there's some guy sitting there looking to give out some kind of card. I don't know if it's a get out of jail free or what. So got to figure this out. But anyway, hey Jim, good to have you here with us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. So I do this all the time. I think a lot of people know you, but who is Jim Mixon? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, wow. Jim Mixon is the Clerk of Superior Court in Iredell County. I've been the clerk since December of 2012.
It's been that long.
It doesn't seem like that long. Before that, I was a probation parole officer. I get to tell everybody that I left one job I loved for another job I love. And I do love being the Clerk of Superior Court. I think it's the most unique office role in not just our state's judiciary, but in the entire nation, because the clerk wears so many different hats in North Carolina. We like to joke and say it takes at least 3 people in South Carolina to do our job: the probate court judge, the court clerk, and the master of equity, which is another judge.
I've never even heard that.
It's another judge in South Carolina that hears matters dealing with real property, such as foreclosures, partitions of land, and things like that. Terms, even though we're next door to each other, terms between Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina all are different. In South Carolina, they call the district attorney the solicitor still down there. Guardianship matters, the terminology is different down there as well. But clerk does all of that in North Carolina, serves as the judge of probate. In fact, if you look at statistics that the Administrative Office of Courts put out a couple of years ago, the clerks actually are responsible for about 46% of all of the cases in the Superior Court Division.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of things are handled administratively, and that's where the clerk comes in to a point. And so, there's a lot of things that are just having to have I's dotted and T's crossed and people heard. Right. Here's the law, folks. And that's what you kind of do. You kind of show them what the law is.
But the clerk also hears a lot of contested hearings. I've had cases appealed from my decision to the Superior Court to the Court of Appeals, and actually had one that was appealed to the Supreme Court. They didn't review it. They thought everything looked good and sent it on back down. But the clerk hears a tremendous number of contested matters as well. That's why I was running late.
Well, I know I
had 2 attorneys in front of me in a courtroom full of people. So
Did you tell them you had bigger things to do?
I had to tell them I had a previous or an engagement.
Yeah, coming on taking care of NC, you can't get much bigger than this. This is a lot bigger than the Tonight Show, the Letterman, whatever you name it.
A lot better.
But like you, I've become a Canes fan.
There you go.
To a couple games this year.
There you go.
They are a lot of fun. And I was trying to find merchandise, after they won. It was kind of hard to find it this way. You got to get a little closer to Raleigh to find
you definitely got to get closer to Raleigh.
And once you get to Raleigh, it's everywhere.
They are, and they're proud of it too.
They are. They should be. That region has supported the Hurricanes. It's hard to get tickets to a regular game.
Yeah.
And you go even a regular game that the Lenovo Center's packed, and then if it is, it's all.
Well, like I said, and I it's funny. About 3 years ago, I was at a Canes game, a Hurricanes game, and I was looking about maybe getting a jersey. I thought, well, I might get one of these jerseys. I never really do that, but I said, and so I got to looking, and I kept thinking, and they were like $79.99. And I go, wow, man, I don't know if I want an $80 jersey. How many times am I going to wear this? And, the Hurricanes had won like 10 years, been like a decade or so. And I'm like, I don't know. And I can't remember now who it was the jersey I was going to get. Now he's retired since then. And so anyway, I said, $80. So now I looked the other day, and they're right at $200 to $250. Yeah, so I should have bought when the market was down, as they say. I should have got it then.
My joke is, their fan base is what happens when you cross SEC football fans, ACC basketball fans with hockey.
There you go.
That's what you get. So,
yeah. Well, let me ask you this: before we get in, we got a lot to talk about. So the budget, good or bad?
I like it. There's a lot of things in there good for us. My office gets an additional 1.5 positions. I'm trying to figure out what to do with a 0.5 position, Jeff. But
we like to make it interesting for y'all.
But that is much needed and much appreciated. The county will also get an additional magistrate's position.
I think we're going to get another district attorney.
I think so as well. Yeah. I think so as well. But yes. So as far as there was only 44 clerk positions, 44 allocated throughout the entire state, so Iredell County getting 1.5, that's actually a big percentage.
That's pretty big.
That's, I guess, 4% of the positions allocated, something like that, when my math is right.
Well, like I said, now let me ask you this question. E-courts, how's it going? And for all y'all don't know, what we've done basically is we've tried to bring our judicial system into, I guess, the 21st century or whatever you want to call it, to modernize it, and it's good and different.
There are some good aspects to it. First of all, one of the hardest things was that we went from mid-1980s technology.
Blinking green light. I've been in there.
Exactly. Old green screens. We skipped a couple generations of technology. And so for everyone trying to make that bridge, it has been difficult. It's been difficult for the people in the courthouse. It's been difficult for attorneys. There's still a lot of struggle with it. But now, for the public, for greater access to records and documents and everything online, that has certainly improved. Before, you had to come down to the courthouse and you wanted a copy of anything. If you needed to show your employer your speeding ticket was dismissed, you had to literally come to the courthouse, get a copy of it. Now your employer they can look online, and everything's there. Not just a disposition, but everything in the case is there. So all the pleadings are online, and people can just download and print them from home if they want a copy of them.
Well, that's handy. Do you think that's going to lead to more fraud, possibly, with so much information out there on legal stuff? Or do you think that everything's kind of secure enough? It's just going to be a very convenient thing? That's the one thing I worried about.
We have worried about that, and I say we, I mean the court system, the clerks across the state. There are some statutes in place where we have to redact any PII before it goes online, personal identifying information, social security numbers, all of that information. We have to redact that before it goes online. So we've taken a lot of steps in that regard to try to protect people's identity, not necessarily their identity, because everything is public record.
I know. What's in the court system?
98% of what happens in the court system is public record. Juvenile proceedings aren't. Most of adoption proceedings aren't. But for the most part, involuntary commitments, that's another one that's not. But for the most part, like I said, you get a traffic ticket, that's always been a public record.
Yeah, if you don't believe that, see how many letters you get from attorneys.
Exactly. Regardless, we have expunctions now for people. When their case is dismissed, we have automatic expunctions in many instances where that does disappear from the public record, but generally everything has always been a public record. You just had to come get it. You just had to ask for it. Anybody could have asked for it.
Yeah. What triggers an automatic expunction?
Generally a dismissal. Or a finding of not
guilty. Because used to, that was, whether you got dismissed or not, it kind of lingered out.
It lingered, and then we went through a period where you could file a petition.
Yeah.
But several years ago, it's not several, it's probably been within the last 4 or 5. Things, like I said, where the case is dismissed maybe by the district attorney, or there's a finding of, a not guilty finding, then it's automatically expunged within a certain amount of time. But, we've run into some things, and this is something I advocated for At one point, we just destroyed everything. Well, young man gets a citation for doing something maybe he's not too smart at age 18 and then tries to get in the military. Well, he may have gotten some kind of deferred prosecution or dismissal or something along those lines and had to show proof, though. He did the right thing. He's trying to get in the military. He goes down to the recruiter and they start talking. He says, I got in a little trouble, but it was dismissed. Well, the military wanted to see proof of the dismissal.
Y'all didn't have nothing.
We didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
Because we destroyed it all. So we did back up and make some provisions for that so that people can come back and get a copy of their record if they need it.
Yeah.
So that was the right thing to do.
I've actually had a couple of people just here in the last little bit, and I've been working with it, trying to direct them on getting stuff expunged. It's a lot simpler than it used to be. So, but still, probably a lawyer is going to be the best way to go about it. Go ahead and just hire them, let them go through the legal system, because it's still not easy. There's some complications.
It is, and there's, like I said, you hit on there's some complications. There's some sticky points that it's just easy for an attorney that does it every day. It's. Can you work on your truck?
Not like I used to.
Exactly. I'm the same way. Sometimes it's just easier for me to take it to a mechanic, even though I know what to do.
Yeah.
It's just still.
Don't have the computer to hook up to.
I don't have that. I'd have to borrow that. I'd have to do a little research online. I've always I've got an old Ranger pickup truck in 01 that I could still work on, but my wife's Camry, or 2023 Camry, it just goes to the shop.
I know. I know.
So, and that's kind of work.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just a lot easier.
Well, I haven't heard a problem with Iredell County necessarily, but do the magistrates, do they fall under your jurisdiction, or do they work on their own independent? How do they work?
Magistrates are independent judicial officials.
Okay.
Now, they serve a 4-year term.
Yeah.
They are nominated by the clerk.
Okay. I knew you were
They are
involved.
appointed by the senior resident Superior Court judge in Iredell County. That'd be Judge Crosswhite.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're supervised by the chief district court judge. But the supervision is really limited to scheduling and things like that. Because just like any other judicial official with the autonomy that judicial officials have, one judge can't tell another judge what to do.
Right.
Can't tell another judge how to rule. Same with a magistrate. The district court judge really can't tell a magistrate how to rule on something. They can put policies and guidelines in place for all the magistrates to follow, but they can't, on an individual case, they can't really tell a magistrate how to rule on that.
And the only reason I ask that, and I haven't that I know of, haven't had an issue with any of our magistrates here in Iredell. And I guess, do they work back and forth with Alexander also, or Alexander has their own? Because I know we're one judicial district.
We are, but magistrates are like clerks. They're specific to that.
That's what I thought. I know we had, but now we have had issues across the state with magistrates letting people back out when they probably should have never got back out, giving them a low bond or even giving a bond instead of not giving a bond and holding them over till the judge could do it. And so I know there's been talk about looking into what levels do we need to go. Magistrates can do this, but maybe they shouldn't be able to do that if it's a certain crime. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see something in a AOC, that's Administration of the Court, omnibus bill that has some better guidance, because I know there's a lot of things going on.
Right. And our arenas law, I think
that had changes. That added in it too. So I think we saw that and said, okay, it did certain things, but it still left out some of the other issues. So I feel like that we're going to probably have to clarify.
Right.
Some coming up.
I'm working on some of these legislative issues, and I've been co-chair of the Clerk's Legislative Committee this year.
I see Jim Moore in Raleigh now doing states. Not that he ain't working.
But I'm working. But, hey, the great thing with e-courts is when I'm in Raleigh, I can work on my laptop and sign orders and type orders and do stuff like that from a table outside of your office.
There you go.
And so I can stay working remotely while I'm at the General Assembly. But, the tough thing is we have Mecklenburg County to the south of us, large metropolitan county. We have a couple other large counties, and then we've got some really small counties throughout our state. Hyde, Perquimans, and what works in Mecklenburg doesn't work in smaller counties necessarily all the time. But y'all have to write statutes that apply to all counties and throughout the state. Perquimans is unique in that their situation is that they don't have a magistrate on duty during the day generally.
Really?
Their clerk handles all the magistrate's duties, and the clerk, through the statute, has that authority to set bonds, issue search warrants, and things like that. They're lucky in Perquimans. The clerk there is a former magistrate, the elected clerk, but that's kind of the way they operate in that county. If the courthouse is open, then the clerk handles the functions of the magistrate.
The clerk can't tell his deputy clerk's going to step in and do whatever.
Assistant clerk can do it. Yes.
Still different, but
So
it's still it's still good with the statutes, and we're going to get into statutes here in a second of the general statutes of how things work. But that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that. So I guess every county is unique to itself in what it has to do.
Right. Exactly.
I
always joke and say I like being the clerk in Iredell County. I have 48 people. I don't have 200 like to do in Mecklenburg, but I don't have to do everything. The clerk in Perquimans has to know how to do literally everything.
I see it. Well, now let's talk a little bit about the general statutes, and I know you want to say something first before we get into this as far as your ability to really speak to a lot of things we'd probably like to talk about, but can't. If you want to step up and do that, or I can do it, either one. As far as
go ahead and start, and then I'll kind of finish up with it. How's that?
All right, we can do that. Let me go back here and make sure I got it all sort of right here.
And I think you're talking about the school board.
Yep. Although the lawsuit has been dismissed, the North Carolina Code of Judicial Conduct requires that the clerk or whoever it is refrain from publicly commenting on the merits of judicial proceedings. And as a judicial official, I don't believe you can appropriately discuss whether the lawsuit was right or wrong, offering opinions about the legal arguments. Specifically instructs judges and other judicial officials to abstain from public comment on the merits of a court proceeding even after dismissal. Also, legislation is a matter of public policy enacted by the General Assembly, and being a judicial official, you feel it would probably be inappropriate to make public comments on legislation that was created in an appointment process. So I understand we're not going to really talk about how we got there other than why it kind of maybe fell to the clerk of court's office. And I think a lot of people don't realize that in statute now, the clerk of court's office, whoever is our clerk of court, would be the one, in case it could never be settled, that would appoint a county commissioner if there was an open spot and the time's expired. There's 30 days. And I don't even know if there's a time, if there's a date, amount of days that you would have to appoint, but it does fall to your office. 10? Okay, so I was thinking it was the same other way. So 10. And we've had quite a few openings on the county commissioner. I created one of them when I actually went to the General Assembly, got nominated by the party, and so went forward with that. And I know at that time, the chair of the Iredell County Republican Party, they did not even nominate anybody to take my place because the last 3 times they had nominated, the Board of Commissioners ended up taking somebody else. So there's history there that either people don't want to remember or maybe don't know. I'm not sure. So now what happened the other day was legislation was passed to where the clerk of court, has the job of, if the school board cannot fill a position after the allotted time, then it falls to the clerk of court to appoint. And a lot of people felt like that was very contentious and this, that, and the other. We won't get into legalities to appoint, but it only made sense that follow some kind of the same lines as the county commissioner, in my opinion, because those are the two, basically, other than soil and water. Maybe you have control over that too.
I haven't researched that one.
But those are the two elected boards in our county. And the rest are individual positions, but those are the two elected boards. So to me, it only made sense that you would also have the appointment, if nothing could be settled over that time period, for the school board. And that's what happened. And I don't know, you may want to give us a little insight. I never reached out to you. Our Senator Vicki Sawyer did, though, I know. I think forewarned you of what she was thinking, good, bad, or indifferent. But now this could fall to whoever. Somebody may precede you, or, not necessarily. This ain't the Jim Mixon. This is a clerk of court position appointment. So I guess my first question is how did you feel about having this thrown upon your shoulders? Because this has been an ongoing thing for a while.
The phrase "it is what it is" comes to mind. As I mentioned earlier, the clerk is asked to do make a lot of difficult decisions. The matter in front of me today that I'm hearing is whether to remove a trustee in a family trust. That's what I've got in front of me today. I routinely hear matters where I'm determining whether someone's competent or not in appointing a guardian and who the guardian should be and what type of guardianship. So as far as it being thrust on the clerk, the clerk makes a lot of difficult decisions every day. You mentioned the county commissioner appointment. There was a lot of speculation when you went to the legislature that was going to come to me.
Yeah.
And if you kind of trace that statute back to various different statutes, I think you can trace it back to 1895, maybe even 1883. I know in Union County, it wasn't too long ago that the clerk had to appoint a commissioner in Union County to the board of their commissioners, maybe just within the last 3 years. And I think they hit their first meeting where he was seated. They then turned around and elected him chairman of the board. After his support. I was like, boy, that's a double whammy there. But yeah, so it's not uncommon for the clerk to make very difficult decisions.
Well, and I guess the clerk of court position goes all the way back to basically the beginning of our Constitution, our state. I think the sheriff, was the first position, but I think the clerk of court was sometime in the very, very either late 1700s or very, very beginning of 1800s created in our system of government in North Carolina.
Well, if you go back and look and you trace the office of clerk, there were clerks in the eastern part of the state, like Dare County, that reported to the king.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is a very historic office. It's always been looked at in our state as the chief resident judicial officer in each county. Much of our judicial authority was added in the 1960s when court reform, and we were added to the state constitution, the post-Civil War constitution. I can't remember the date, but even pre-Civil War, pre-Revolutionary War, we've had clerks of court throughout North Carolina.
So this is a set position. And, it's funny. You kind of look at the clerk of court and you don't think so much about it being a political position, but yet parties are distinguished. It is partisan. So we know who are Republicans, who are Democrats, just like in all the other elections in Iredell County. And you campaign and you go out and work. I know this past time you actually had a primary.
Yes.
And so it's kind of unusual, but yet there's a political level to it. But we also want somebody that has some kind of an experience with the law, with the judicial system, to be in this place. If not, I would think the learning curve would be ridiculous.
Well, and it was when I was appointed in 2012, even though I'd been a probation officer for 17 years, I'd been in and out of the courthouse. I worked with judges. I understood court procedure. It was still a very big learning curve. I had worked at Coca-Cola before, and I'd been a supervisor and a manager. I had a crew and covered, part of Iredell and Rowan counties back then. So I had been in management. I had some knowledge of supervision and and human resources and things like that. But for anyone in any judicial role, it's a steep learning curve, and how quickly. I mean, I was literally hearing cases my second day as a clerk.
Well, and so I'm going to ask this. I'm not going to say who you picked or what you did, but in your mind, what was the criteria that you were kind of, I guess, looking for, or how did you think that this school board position should be filled with what kind of person? Because I'm just trying to get your mindset. And I think a lot of people are curious, and I think you can talk about that. I don't know. If you can't, say so.
I think I can in some terms.
Broad terms.
Well, let me kind of lay out what I did. I received the letter from the superintendent. I can remember the date because it was the same day we had a water intrusion in the courthouse, and we had to close the courthouse. It was the 24th of June. I immediately put together a press release and submitted that to our local media, asking for people to submit their names, their resumes, anything they wanted to add with it. Gave everyone until noon on the following Monday.
Because you're on the clock.
I was on the clock.
And the 4th of July is coming.
The 4th of July is coming, exactly. So we got the list of names. I sent that over to the school board. I sent that over to the Board of Elections, had them confirm that everybody was a resident of District 2, and then we started scheduling interviews. I say we, I had somebody on my staff call, because I didn't want to have any conversations outside of the actual interviews with anybody. We did interviews the Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning, and then I originally had 16 questions I was asking everyone. In the interest of time, after the first interview, I cut it down to 13. But the questions had to do with, why do you want to serve? Why do you think you're qualified? How do you deal with disagreements among people with various opinions? Questions like that.
Need to have good skills there.
Right. So, and that was the crux of the interview questions, and I reviewed everybody's resumes, applications, and went from there.
How many people did you have apply?
We had 6 apply, and one withdrew her name before we got to the interview process.
So 5.
So I interviewed 5 people.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I know it wasn't easy. And that was kind of putting a lot on you real quick, because this thing came through fast. Senator Sawyer talked about doing it. Next thing I know, 2 days later, she had it in a bill over in the Senate and coming to me. So, and of course, me, Todd Carver, and Mitchell Setzer, we all 3 are Iredell County reps, and so we put forth the bill on our side to a point, and we backed it, and it, best I can remember, I think it passed unanimously. It was in another bill, though. It may have had 1 or 2 discs on the other side. I don't think it was because of us. I think it was because of zonings and dezonings or de-annexation, stuff like that. So, I hope you don't ever have to do it again. But don't hold your breath.
I understand. Like I said, it's part of the role of the clerk.
It's part of the job.
The role of the clerk.
And we're glad that we have somebody in that role that we feel very comfortable with and very confident of. And Jim, you do a great job for us here in Iredell County and for the state, for the other clerks where you get out and represent. So, and time flies by right here. It doesn't take long to do an interview. So I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you working us into your schedule. And I'm going to let you go unless you just want to hang out for the second half. I figure you got stuff to do.
I do. I just would hope everyone appreciates the what we started with, because there was a lot of interest in the community, and I had to politely tell people, I'm sorry, I really can't talk about the issues dealing with the lawsuit. And that's what a lot of people really wanted to talk about.
I know. And, that wasn't your part.
And I can't. And it's I guess my example is when Fox News goes out to interview someone about something in court, they don't ask another judge for their opinion on something that's before the federal court. They might go ask a lawyer that's in private practice, but we can't talk about those things. There are parts of, if that lawsuit had come to fruition, there are things that could have come before the clerk.
Oh, yeah.
A motion for an extension of time to file an answer, a default judgment. Those matters could have come before the clerk, and I would have had to rule on them. So,
and who knows? It could be brought back up again. I don't know. It could be a countersuit. Who knows? Who knows? So those are all tricky things.
Yeah, I hope everyone appreciates that.
Well, I hope everyone appreciates the tough decisions you had to make. These are not easy decisions, but I'm glad, like I said, we have somebody that I feel very confident in that can make these decisions. In the future, that person could change. Someday we may regret this, but I don't think so, because this to me makes statutorial sense in that if you have the ability to appoint a county commissioner, then it seems only natural that the clerk of court be the one to appoint a school board member that can't be seated or doesn't get seated for whatever reason, fill the vacancy even. We won't even talk about seated, we'll talk about filling the vacancy. So anyway, Jim, thank you for coming on.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yep. Folks, stay tuned for the second half of the show. Be right back.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
All right, son. Time to put out this campfire.
Dad, we learned about this in school.
Oh, did you now? Okay. What's first?
Smokey Bear said to.
First, drown it with a bucket of water, then stir it with a shovel.
Wow, you sound just like him.
Then he said.
If it's still warm, then do it again.
Where can I learn all this?
It's all on SmokeyBear.com with other wildfire prevention tips. Because only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
All right, back here with the second part of the show. If anybody would like to call in, talk about some of the things we just talked about with our Clerk of Court, Jim Mixon, love to hear from you, 704-873-9929. Going to get into it here, and I'm going to probably struggle, but I thought I needed to bring it up. Cyclospora, I think that's the way it's pronounced, parasite.
Good job.
There you go. Some days I get it right. That NC State education comes through every time. Taylor Farms is recalling iceberg lettuce shipped out to 29 U.S. states from central Mexico. They're mostly Midwestern states, but we also did receive some here in North Carolina. A lot of southern states, southeastern states got it. There's over 5,000 cases right now reported in Michigan. So evidently Michigan got the blunt of it. There's over 7,000 total and still trying to figure out. I think some people didn't have as much problems, but had problems. So we're trying to declare that. the part I think that bothers me a lot is the product come from Central Mexico. Taylor Farms, which is not a bad company, they did have a problem back in 2024, and I think I remember this, onion slivers, and I think that had to do with some of the different fast food restaurants had some issues, so got into an E. coli thing. Understand produce is grown mostly outside. I would think in Central Mexico at this time of year, though, that's probably greenhouses maybe the lettuce is grown in. But I know when you're outside, animals, you end up having a lot of issues a lot of times. Animal feces, I'm using the best term I know how. It took me a long time to learn to call it feces, or manure or whatever gets involved. And sometimes I know there's been issues with deer, and we've had that and whatnot. So they're based out of Salinas, California. One thing I will say, they've been in business, Taylor Farms has, since like 1995. And you may not see necessarily Taylor Farms on the packaging. They do a lot of packaging for other people and do a lot with Cisco, which is a huge food distributor for a lot of your restaurants and all that. And know this, that Taylor Farms, they do represent a lot of multiple family farms. And so that allows people to be able to contract with them. So it's not just one company that has this lettuce patch that's infected. It's hard to track a lot of things down. But like I said, sadly, it seems like that we end up seeing a lot of these issues coming from Mexico and Central America. And I just feel like probably without the USDA and the state DA, Department of Agriculture, not District Attorney, that comes later. But without the Department of Agriculture, who does a heck of a job here in North Carolina Department of Agriculture, I mean, they inspect and they are on it. If something does happen, I mean, it's immediate response. I see it in my business, making animal feed. If anything should go wrong, we got to have our lot numbers. We got to have all of our stuff, where it went, who got it, invoicing. So, and same thing with this here as far as produce on the human side, even more so. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is I do believe, and always will believe, that we have the safest food supply in the world, in the United States. Now, products that are brought in from outside of it, I'm not going to say they're not safe. I just don't think they have the level of food security and be able to follow the chain of not really command, but the chain of where they go through the channels like we do here in the United States. We are able to tell you at any given moment where this certain thing was, who had it, where it went through, whatever. I think a lot of times you run into issues with that in South America and Central America. And so I always tell everybody, buy the food. Make sure you prepare it to the best of your ability. Make sure that you have a clean environment where you're preparing your own food. Bacteria loves to breed. It loves to get into places. So we've got to be really careful. So many of the food illnesses usually come from proper preparing. So make sure you do. Now, I got tickled, and one of my friends, I shouldn't say tickled, that's not a good word for this, but one of my friends was talking about, if you got lettuce, you need to wash it in 158-degree water. And I said, are you talking about boiling it? Because, 158, that's pretty hot, y'all, to be able to try to handle it. So it's going to be interesting and kind of weird, but we kind of got a little inside info at the General Assembly here over a week ago. And the word on the street for us was that it was having issues coming through Taco Bell. And so
I'm finding something that's kind of interesting to the story actually right now.
Go ahead.
It says the FDA said Sunday that a Taylor Farms lettuce sample initially reported as positive for Cyclospora should be considered a false positive following additional laboratory review.
All right. Well, they're still maybe trying. The bad thing about this is it sounds like they may still be trying to figure out, where it maybe come from. We still don't, and that's the tough thing when you can't track your food down. The chain of who all owned it or had it in possession, chain of possession, it makes it that much harder. And one thing they're usually pretty good about here, like I said, in the United States, is chain of possession, how it goes and who has it and who touches it, and we have to really watch that. I know on our side, so we're heavily regulated in the United States, but that's a good thing when it comes to what you or your animals. Excuse me. Bless you. What they consume. What goes in your body. So it's really important here. And I think Taco Bell did everything they could to make sure that their products are good. You'll have people that'll say, I'll never eat there again. Well, folks, I think if you say that, eventually you will have nowhere to go and eat. Life is not perfect, but I know everybody tries to do the best they can all up and down our food chain. And so this, when something like this happens, it's kind of a black eye to agriculture in totality to all, because we all want to make sure that everybody enjoys the fruits of the labors of the farmers in our country and that they're successful. And, the worst thing that can happen to you is somebody says their place or their stuff's no good. That the word of mouth is really critical. So I'm not saying things don't go wrong, but I am saying you've got to be understanding and realize they will take the precautions. We will fix the problems, and your food is as safe as it can possibly be. But we have humans involved, and so it's not perfect. And the Lord tells us about that in the Bible quite a few times. So beware, but make sure you prepare well. And make sure that you're very conscious of where your food comes from. I really believe in the country of origin labeling, really on meats especially. We go through a lot of issues where hoof and mouth disease may be prevalent in a country. In the United States, it cannot happen here. We will eradicate, just like we did with the high pathogen avian influenza. We will eradicate. So, and that was hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, and the poultry industry took a hit over the last probably 3 to 4 years. So real important there. Like I said, anybody wants to talk about anything, 704-873-9929. Well, the Trump administration is making the liberals cry again. And this time they're going crazy, they say. This time the United States Interior Department has actually canceled a rule that is meant to protect plants and animals that are on the wait list to be classified as threatened with extinction, endangered species. So now what happens is, the way it goes, to get on this actual endangered species list, you have to go through a wait period to see if you actually qualify, which gives the Department of Interior and also other different USDA and all them the determination to decide whether you actually this species is going to become extinct if something doesn't happen. So in the past, until right now, till Friday, you could just nominate some species to go on the list, and that automatically put kind of a stay on them. So basically, it kind of got them on the list, even though they weren't qualified to be on the list yet. Okay. And this had always been, and this started 1975 was the Plant Endangered Species Act, and then they added animal in 1977. If y'all remember what was going on in 1975, 1977, that would be the Jimmy Carter administration. We had a little blip on the map there, and so I'd say probably things leaned a little harder to left than they had in quite a while in the 70s, leaving the Nixon administration and then going into the Reagan one. But anyway, not saying that's the thing, just saying what I'm saying. And so with that, it allowed this wait list. And so what would happen is if the environmentalists groups, saw somebody was getting ready to drill in the Alaskan tundra or in the Gulf of America, they would say, oh, well, there's going to be a fish you're going to kill, or there's a bird, or there's certain deer or elk or something. And this one, the bad thing, you got so many subspecies. You can have an elk, but then you can have many different variations of that elk, and certain one variation, which is kind of rare to start with. Oh, that pipeline's going to, keep them from being able to breed, and they'll be extinct for long. And so let's go ahead and get them on the watch list or waiting list, and we'll protect them now until we can prove that they need to be protected. And then next thing you know, we're in court in the lawsuits. But the way the law was written, it allowed for this wait list. And so a lot of projects that would usually get stopped would be because something's on the wait list to be determined if it's endangered. Well, that's been taken away now. You can go ahead and nominate, but nothing's going to happen until they're actually approved as an endangered species. And so, this is going to drive the crazy left, the liberal left, insane, because this has been their game plan for the last while to basically stop any kind of drilling, maybe for whatever, whether it be oil or maybe mining, anything that we do on the energy complex. We have more regulations by far. Once again, we're back to what we talked about a little bit ago, than pretty much every country out there on the face of the earth, except for maybe some of your European countries who really don't drill for oil because there's none there.
Right.
So, and probably don't dig for a lot of coal because there doesn't seem to be a lot of that there either. So, very much importers. But so this is going to make things really interesting to see where we go. I will tell you, and they're saying, oh, well, they're just playing up to the big corporations and they're just cow down and we're going to have all these species that are endangered are going to go extinct. Well, I'm not saying we need to kill off different animals, but I do know that we have done some crazy things in the recent past that really weren't proven they were successful or not in keeping a species alive. And I want to say the Chad out in California and Washington State, Oregon, they have tore down numerous hydroelectric dams because of the kill, they said, of the Chad small fish. Now, this is a very, very small fish. We're talking like tadpole size type kind of thing here. And I don't know. I think in Oregon alone, there's been 20-some different dams tore down. And the funny thing is, they gave the money to the Indian tribe nation in that area to tear the dams down to protect the fish. I'm not sure if the Indian tribes were really worried about the fish, but they got a lot of money to go tear down these hydroelectric dams. And so you look about where they're having water issues, which goes into California, and they tore out a lot of dams too. So their fresh water that they used to capture in these lakes, no longer lakes anymore, going straight into the ocean. And they wonder why they don't have the water reservoirs that they've had. And I think at some time or another, you got to let some kind of common sense rule. I don't think we're quite getting there. So this is to me personally, I think this is a good ruling. I think things need to be on the endangered species list, but I don't think you can put them on there and take years to prove it. I think it either is or it isn't. Let's move along.
You need to come with proof.
Exactly. All right. So Trump was on primetime TV this past week delivering an address talking about our elections and how they have been compromised. Funny thing, I only think the only news network that carried it was Fox, ABC, NBC, and I'm not sure about CBS, but I know ABC and NBC chose not to carry the talk of a president, which I think is kind of rare for a national speech that was given. But they did. And he said a lot, didn't really give exactly proof, but he is going to release some classified documents. And a lot of that shows, I don't know if it's Chinese interference, but it sure is data mining of our elections and our voter information that China has acquired. Now, I'm not sure why they've acquired this unless there is something up. And we're talking like 200 million plus people information. that supposedly they have. And it's not hard, folks. The scary part is, and maybe I shouldn't tell this because there may be stalkers out there, but you can actually go on the North Carolina State Board of Elections, and it's not hard to find somebody and where they live if they're registered to vote. So you can find out a whole lot about their history of their voting.
Your stuff's out there.
It's out there. It is. But this is why Trump's pushing so hard on the SAVE Act. Basically, which is an elections bill that he wants passed. And, he's talked about the 24 and the 2020 elections, still bringing that up. But one thing I think is very interesting that I found out talking to a congressman, won't name, that at that time, it had been a couple weeks, and Senator Thune and Donald Trump hadn't spoken at all in about a 2-week period. And I don't know how the leader of the Republican U.S. Senate doesn't have conversations more regularly with our president. And so there is some dysfunctional going on there.
Yeah.
And the Senate can't seem to pass the SAVE Act. But there is a way that it could be done through the reconciliation. But they're not putting forth much effort. I'll leave that at it. All right. Real quick, getting into this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip one here. But crazy as it gets, number one. So the new platform is out for the Democratic Socialist Party of America, DSA. You've heard me talk about this. Remember DSA acronym. Keep remembering that, Democrat Socialist Party of America. And their platform right now is to eliminate the U.S. Senate. Yes. And also to have the executive and judiciary chosen by Congress. And, of course, they want to expand Congress to have many, many more members and get it down to where they only represent maybe about 100,000 people apiece instead of about 800,000. So they're wanting to grow this. They want to grow the House of Representatives, eliminate the Senate, and allow the House of Representatives then to pick who will be the president, who will be your Supreme Court nominees. And they want amnesty for all immigrants, past and future, and I guess present if you're crossing now, which means open borders. And they also want to defund the Department of War.
Absolutely not.
So, really, once they defund the Department of War, we will have open borders. We will.
Because we'll have no way to protect ourselves.
Exactly.
And people vote for that. People vote for those people.
They're thinking about it. So here we go. All right. So real quick, because I got about 5 minutes, I want to try to get this in. I've been putting this off, y'all, for a couple of weeks. I've been digging. I've been watching and reading. The Southern Poverty Law Center. SPLC. Everybody likes acronyms, don't they? Southern Poverty Law Center. That sounds like a great thing. We're going to protect poor people, give them legal aid. Guess who really started this? One of the main ones. Her name is Anita Earls. Anita Earls is now one of your sitting North Carolina Supreme Court justices. Anita Earls is running for her seat again against a very competent woman, one that's very smart, Sarah Stevens. Anita Earls founded Southern Poverty Law Center, and also when stuff would come before the North Carolina Supreme Court, she would not recuse herself and went ahead and would vote as a judiciary for stuff the Southern Poverty Law Center put forth, which I had a hard time with. April 2026, that's why I've been sitting on this, because it's been gaining. A federal grand jury indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center of 11 counts of wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. The Judicial Department alleges the civil rights group defrauded donors by funneling over $3 million in donated funds to informants with extremist groups, and I'll get into these groups before, but KKK and Nazis party, that through fictitious shell entities. The Southern Poverty Law Center has defended the payments as long-standing covert intelligence program used to monitor violent threats and share information with law enforcement and save lives. Funny. There's an old saying, if you don't create a problem, then you don't need nobody to fix the problem.
Right.
And so what they got into, basically, and of course, right when they very first started, they introduced what they called a hate map. And for years, the Southern Poverty Law Center has faced severe backlash from conservatives, Christian, over its hate map and extreme designations. And basically, that hate map showed where the people were being oppressed and discriminated against. And if you look at it, the whole Southeast is like a blaring red. Everybody's guilty, according to them. We're all guilty. And so what they ended up doing during the controversy, the FBI cut its ties. They were involved in getting stuff supposedly with leadership. But also in 2019, there was a workplace culture scandal with internal crisis. And one of the co-founders, Morris Dees, following sexual harassment allegations and gender discrimination in the workplace, was forced to resign. Now, so here goes, we're into the wiretapping. So between 2014 and 2023, Southern Poverty Law Center secretly funded more than $3 million in donations. How much you got to give an informant? You ain't giving an informant. You're funding your supposed enemy to give them money to go do things to individuals who are associated with various violent extreme groups, including the Ku Klux Klan, Aryan Nation, and the National Socialist Party. That's different than the Democrat Socialist Party. There's a lot of socialist parties out there, folks, believe me. So the grand jury in Montgomery, Alabama, turned an indictment on the 11 counts. SPLC is manufacturing racism to justify its existence, according to the Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Using donor money to allegedly profit off of Klansmen cannot go unchecked. The Department of Justice will hold the Southern Poverty Law Center and every other fraudulent organization operating with the same deceptive playbook accountable. Sure ain't run out of time here. It's getting close. No entity is above the law. So basically what they were doing was they were sending money to all these different hate groups, and I'm going to read them real quick. So Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, Unite the Right, National Alliance, this is the far, far left-leaning organization, National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nations affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, which is American Nazi Party, and the American Front, which is another far, far right. So, the best way to keep your adversaries around is to pay them. Mm-hmm. And that's what we got here. And people were giving money, the far left was, so they could send money to the far crazy right. Ain't this weird? You're going to keep needing them if you keep creating chaos. Y'all, you can't make this stuff up. It is as crazy as it gets. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, dear Lord, we live in a crazy world because it is a fallen world, and we depend upon you, our Savior, to take us away from this world and lead us to an eternity, Lord, where there is peace and comfort with you. So this is not our home, if we believe. So I pray you be with us, lead and guide us, give us wisdom and discernment, Lord, and keep the craziness away from us. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Folks, until next week, take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Taking Care of NC. We hope today's program offered valuable insight into the topics shaping North Carolina's future. Stay informed, stay engaged, and join us next time as we continue exploring the issues that matter most to our state. Until then, take care, and thank you for being a part of the conversation.
Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.
WAME and Bunce Johnson Funeral Home are proud to present our national anthem, Bunce Johnson, where every detail matters. Call them at 704-873-7223 or stop by their location at 705 Davie Avenue, Statesville for your personalized experience.
Oh, say.